two major Ubisoft announcements in just the last few days. The first is that they're going to start making more open world games in which the player is ultimately responsible for pushing the story, as opposed to more traditional story-based narratives like in Assassin's Creed. Second big Ubisoft announcement is that they're going to stop putting story content behind DLC, and instead they're only going to put characters or maybe multiplayer maps or some sort of microtransaction system in its place, but no longer are you going to have exclusive content for collector's editions, no longer are you going to have PlayStation-only content. That sort of stuff is going to go away. And I think this is really interesting, and I think it really kind of speaks to what Ubisoft is trying to do as a whole. I feel like a lot of this is his response to Watch Dogs 2, and it's less than expected sales figures. I did get a chance to play a lot of Watch Dogs 2, both before the game launched and after as part of a beta program I work for. Now that the NDA has been lifted in a sense and the game is out in the public, there's nothing I'm going to tell you don't know. The game is really pretty. It's really gorgeous. However, it has significant frame rate issues. I did a video on that. You could go back and check my gameplay of that, kind of showing off how bad the frame rate really is. And it speaks to Ubisoft's problem with an open world game, which scares me, because they're having a really hard time with this engine. You saw it in Unity, you saw it in Syndicate, now you're seeing it in Watch Dogs 2, where these open world games are beautiful in still shot, but in transition, in gameplay, they don't look very good, and that does worry me. But I am happy that they are going to start getting away from the traditional behind content DLC. If you guys are on Xbox One or have Xbox Live, rather, you guys probably saw that they gave away all the Assassin's Creed Unity DLC for free. I scooped it up. I still have yet to play the game, but I'll eventually get around to it. And I feel like this was kind of like a test to see if people were really into the DLC or not. Yes, free is free, but I like that idea. What worries me, and this is something that I also noticed in Watch Dogs 2, not to beat the game up, but I'm going to, is that when you have an open narrative game like that, you have to be careful that the cutscenes that you do show the player match with what the character is doing in their own world. So when I was playing Watch Dogs 2, I was a hell on wheels minion, going around blowing things up, just being a complete, drudge on society, right? And I did that because I was instructed as part of the program to try to destroy the game, see how bad I can make it. Can I really crash the game? Can I make the frame rate so bad that it's unbearable? And I did, and you guys see some gameplay footage of that, as I mentioned before. But that was kind of like my mission. Then I was instructed to go actually play some of the story. So you have this really calm, collected guy in the cutscenes where he's talking to the other NPCs, getting missions, doing quests. Then I go loose and I'm just blowing things up in the middle of the street, being a horror to the world. And then it cuts back to the cutscene where I'm a nice guy again. And that's something that really worries me about this concept of this open world where you kind of choose the pace of the story and you kind of choose what happens, because it really does start to affect you kind of lose investment in the game when your guy plays a certain way. And I did like that about Infamous. Infamous, I think, did an okay job of that, where you did have the good or bad karma system, which slowly started to impact, not too much, but it was kind of in its infancy. That system kind of started to impact what your character looked like, what abilities they had, and how other characters interacted with them. And it would be nice to see if certain decisions were completely blocked off, maybe even similar to like what a Mass Effect system can do, where it's like, hey, you're a complete villain, we're not working with you, this part of the story is closed, this part of the story opens. I think that would lend itself to a lot more replayability, and it would kind of be more believable as the character that, you are doing these things, and this is the natural progression of where your character may go. You absolutely have to have story in these games. These open world games where you're just given a sandbox, like Gary's Mod or something like that, is fun. And yes, it does have a high retention rate from a certain crowd, but the majority of people are interested in being told a story, working towards a greater goal in the game, uncovering mysteries, that sort of thing. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out as Ubisoft goes forward. But I have to say, I'm really, really impressed with the idea of getting rid of the story part behind DLC. I'm just worried that we're going to get microtransactions to death. It's really funny that they announced this on the eve of all these games coming out with all these additional story packs and everything behind DLC, but it sounds like They're kind of shifting their ways. I hope other companies follow. I know Respawn Entertainment recently did this with Titanfall 2, and while the game doesn't have a very high rate, and it's something that I'm very concerned about, that there's not a lot of active player base, I do like that they said, hey, DLC is going to be free. You guys know my beloved Halo franchise did the exact same thing on Halo 5. There is the microtransaction system if you choose to support it, but you don't necessarily have to. There's going to be routine drops. Ubisoft said that they're going to try to transition to a 5 to 10 year life cycle per title. And if they can pull that off, I think they're going to win a lot of goodwill towards gamers. So hope to see, curious to see how that plays out. I don't know when that's going to be available. From what I can tell, Ghost Recon Wildlands still has a lot of that paid content. Whether or not that gets removed or whether or not we don't see it until the next generation of titles like E3 2017 remains to be seen. But that's what I think about the state of Ubisoft, kind of where it's going. Thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, I will see you guys on the other side.